This is K.O.P.A. The roar, the pride. Brothers in boots, we stood side by side. We built the league, we built a name. We played for love, not fortune or fame. This is K.O.P.A. Our hearts are song. The spirit leaves, it's never gone.
Kalispera, or should I say Kalimera, depending on where you're watching it. Welcome to This is K.O.P.A. I'm Stel. Mike is here, and Mike, how you doing, my guy?
I'm good. You?
Mihara, man. Mihara. I just come back from Cyprus. I feel like I need
Refreshed?
about 50. I need about 50 showers after coming back to England. There, honestly.
Why?
This place is a toilet. Right? It's a toilet. Sorry. Just can't stand England and London in general. Anyway, we've got a special guest. We don't want to dampen the mood with my Malagias. So
Right. Okay, just want to introduce our guest, our second proper guest on our third podcast, but second official one is George Yerosimou. George will be known to many in K.O.P.A. Those with long memories will know George from his days at DOEK, Cosmos, but also towards the end of K.O.P.A, where George was a well-known man in the middle, one of our top referees in the K.O.P.A league. So George got a wealth of experience of K.O.P.A, both as a player, experiencing it as a person in the community, but also being a referee in our league as well. So George, welcome and thank you for jumping on the pod with us.
Good evening. Thank you for inviting me.
Excellent. George, even though I've known you more in your referee, in your roles as a referee in K.O.P.A, I never realised that we've also got a South London link, because I grew up in South London. So tell us about your time in South London and your time at DOEK and Cosmos.
Yeah, it was interesting really, because in '75 when K.O.P.A started, there was talk. I lived in Shepherd's Bush, West London, actually, right. And we knew this Cypriot shoemaker. We used to go and see him quite a lot, and he said they're starting a team in South London football. Are you interested? And we used to play with my brother football in the park all the time. So we went along and started training with DOEK. It was at Clapham Common on the the old red gravel pitches with the floodlights, where you ended up with grazes all over your legs and stuff like that. And so from '75, we played with DOEK, myself and my brother's Stavros.
Excellent. So what was that from the beginning? Was that in '75?
Right from '75. I've got this unbroken record, if you like, because I'm still refereeing in the Barnet League. You are. And even on Sunday, I refereed a Cypriot team. I'm on your youth. So for 50 years, I've had some involvement with K.O.P.A or refereeing Cypriot teams.
That's brilliant. So to tell us about those early days with DOEK, because obviously in the modern era, mobile phones and social media, meeting up on a Sunday to go to a football match would have been, well, these days pretty straightforward. You got your WhatsApp groups, you got all these apps and so on. How was it back then? How did you meet up? How did you get to the games, especially coming up to North London?
Yeah, we always had the early meets, and because we were quite reliable, we'd often have to go and pick up all the young boys that needed waking up and getting out of bed and getting them in the car and getting them to the grounds. We always had that kind of extra responsibility to make sure we had a full team. And of course, a lot of teams back then didn't like travelling south. For them, it was all around the North London area, and they didn't like coming to South London. But notwithstanding, obviously, K.O.P.A had a team in Birmingham as well. So there was that thing that some teams had to deal with as well.
Mm. So,
but it was a lot. It was a lot of fun. It was totally new. We didn't know what to expect, but right from the beginning, it was very competitive. People really enjoyed turning up every Sunday, playing against other Cypriot teams and other boys that you'd see in the community.
Mm. And what about the move from DOEK to Cosmos? How did that happen? Why did that happen?
Well, it was a kind of two-stage, because there was another team called Atlas there was a couple of people from DOEK that wanted to start their own team. As usual in Cypriot teams, there was politics, people falling out divisions and so on. So there was another team formed called Atlas. So we went to a team called Atlas, and there was another team in South London called Asteras. Now, Atlas and Asteras joined, and they created Cosmos. And our chairman at the time was Dinos. Remember Dinos from Dinos Travel?
Dinos Travel.
He was our chairman. Yeah, Dinos Travel, and that's how Cosmos was formed. And obviously, you know, we obviously there were two divisions, but we got into the first division, and it did quite well. We had one very, very famous player. I'm sure you'll all remember. Gregory Sava.
Of course,
the legend that played for Omonia in Cyprus.
Yeah, that's right.
Right. And he was. Yeah, I mean, he played for the representative team as well, but he was born and bred in South London. And after coming back from Cyprus, he lived in South London, so he played for us. And he was like a professional player.
One more question before I pass you over to Stel. Did you ever train with Cosmos at Tabard on the new Astro?
Yes, I did. Yeah, at Tabard. Yeah.
So we must have been on the same pitch at some point, because
when
I was at university, I used to come and train with Cosmos because I'd
at Rotherhithe down there. You mean Rotherhithe? Yeah. Tabard. We were Thursday night. Yeah, Thursday night.
Right.
And we had what's his name that used to do us. The Cypriot trainer, I can't remember.
From Millwall,
Millwall guy, yeah.
Milo, he was great, wasn't he?
Milo, yeah, of course, yeah.
It was fantastic.
It was so long ago. Yeah.
Still,
very good coach.
George, you were there from the start, and I'm assuming there were many Greek Cypriots or just Cypriots in general that were joining these teams, participating, having Govendes. What do you remember about that time in terms of the type of conversations that you guys had? Was it about what was going on in Cyprus or what had gone on in Cyprus? Was it about moving forward, or was it just simply about football?
A lot of it was about football. Obviously, you know, we went through the period of the issues in Cyprus, but on Sunday we'd turn up and play football. I mean, even then there were kind of Turkish Cypriot players playing within the K.O.P.A teams, and everyone did get on. There wasn't, as far as I could see, any animosity against them. In fact, there was, you know, Turkish Cypriot teams playing within K.O.P.A. I think there was a unity and a willingness to play and enjoy football together. There wasn't any kind of nastiness at the time. There was good banter, very, very acute competition. I think back then it was probably even more so. Some of the rivalries. You go to Broomfield Park, play Omonia, and the terraces were packed on a Sunday morning. You know, with a coffee van up there and hot dogs, and you know, people there smoking their cigarettes, and it was like just an amazing atmosphere. And obviously, I enjoyed that as a referee as well as a player. Because I started refereeing in 1983, so I've been doing it for 42 years. So 83, I started refereeing. So I was actually playing in the morning and refereeing in the afternoon. K.O.P.A games were in the afternoon as well at 2 o'clock. So I'd finish my game and go and referee a game in the afternoon.
Joe, you kind of answered my next question. I was going to ask, like, how popular were these matches? But you mentioned it's packed out. But I've got another question linked with that. How did people find out about these games? Clearly people spoke, but to get so many people at these games, I'm assuming they'd go to church first, no? And then they'd go to the game.
Yeah, but you had teams like Omonia, Salamina, Akhna, Abuel, Arnautis, all these teams. And a big following, and obviously word of mouth, and in the Gafener and in church. The word got about. These were big teams and some fantastic players back then, some real rivalries on the touchlines. Nothing like you'll see now today when I do Sunday League games. I mean, the Cypriot League was known for being the most well-attended Sunday league. with interest, families turning up. Not always nice kind of things to listen to, I'm afraid, but that's us Cypriots. You know, there was a lot of kind of language on the line, and if you've ever spectated in Cyprus or Greece, you know the kind of stuff you'll get on the line, which we won't repeat here.
So what do you remember about your first game then?
I don't remember that far back. It would have been in '75. We used to play on Clapham Common on the grass, but we'd come to North London to places like Wadham Lodge and play teams like Uckner. I remember playing against Sir Les Ferdinand, who played for Uckner back in the day, who'd turn up 10 minutes before kick-off with a burger in his hand, that sort of thing. But that was it. You know, that's how it was. A lot of these, you know, kind of guys, and we had this ability to recruit the top players in London to our Cypriot teams. And there was a lot of contacts out there.
Mm-hmm. I can imagine. And you mentioned Les Ferdinand, early days before playing pro. What do you remember about him apart from the burger as a player?
Well, he was just unplayable. He was very strong, very, very quick. You know, he didn't need to train very much. He, you know, very good in the air. He knocked you off. You couldn't play against him. He was just so good. But obviously, he'd turn up. I'm sure he didn't play every game, but when he did play, I mean, it was just class apart from anyone else on the pitch. Very raw, but very difficult to play against.
Mm. Do you know, it's funny because you hear stories about ex-pros playing in the K.O.P.A League. You know, I mentioned Edgar Davids in the first episode, and that's the complete opposite. Whereas Les Ferdinand was just starting his football career, and you know, it's easy to say, oh, he looked like he had something about him and that he could make it, but obviously you don't know this. You don't know. But you mentioned all these attributes that he had.
Well, Frank McAvenny's another one that played as well. West Ham guy, the Scottish guy, Frank McAvenny, in his latter years played. I can't remember which team he played for, but he wasn't a very polite person. Shall we put it that way?
Say less, Mike.
Yeah, no. So George, 50 years, player, referee, been around it as a member of our community. Maybe pick out some favourite moments, maybe as a player, someone from the community, and also as a ref. What can you give us in those three categories? Your favourite moments?
Probably a favourite moment. I remember playing New River, and Gregory was in our team at the time, and we took the kick-off, and he literally saw the goalkeeper and scored from the halfway line at New River.
Brilliant.
Yeah, literally, just his technique, you know, touch on the ball was just amazing. I'll never forget that. Another moment, I mean, and again, he's a good friend of mine. I've not seen him for a while, but Sodos, who was the referee, but also player and the manager of Gibros. Sodos, Georgiou, his son Peter played as well. He used to manage a team called Gibros, and we turned up in New River, I think, with Cosmos, and they didn't have enough players. They had about 9 or 10 players, and he was delaying the kickoff and waiting for other players to turn up. The referee insisted they start, and then he was getting his players to go down and feign injury so they could go down to 8 or 7 to get the game abandoned. And it was just, yeah. It was kind of weird. People getting wound up, but it was comical as well.
What about as a referee? What's some of your favourite moments as a referee?
Well, you know, I refereed. I mean, I remember there was a cup final I did over at Haringey Borough, and you know what it's like with spectators and stuff. You know, it's really, really difficult when you're trying to referee a game. And there was stuff coming from the stands, the crowd and stuff. I just stopped the game, picked the ball up, and saying, I'm not going to continue this game unless that person is removed or taken out. And I just, you know, that's me. I'm quite assertive in that way. You know, I believe in the actual game and the abuse and stuff like that. And you know, I didn't want things to degenerate any further. So the game didn't start for about 10 minutes until someone managed to get rid of this guy that was just a total nuisance. and that's the kind of thing you're up against. But you know, a lot of people used to talk to people back in the day. Oh, I referee in the KOPA League, the Cypriot League, and they'd all say you're mad, or you know, they've heard so many bad things about it. But I found it to be a real challenge and to test your mettle, because it's all about managing and relating to the players. You know, they're all pussycats, really. You know, it's just a Cypriot temperament, you know?
I think what I mean, as you know, I've started refereeing in the last couple of years. I think what helps me and you is that our teaching background. That certainly does help. And, you know, being able to deal with individuals and groups of people in a different way, you know, to try to connect with them. I think that does help us as being referees. And I mean, I mean, looking back, would I ever have refed in KOPA? I don't think I would have, actually. So people like you, people like Andrea, were, you know, just set yourselves apart in the way you dealt with them, some of the nonsense that you had to deal with. So well done to you for that.
Yeah, so Gladys was another one. He was one of the old legends as a referee, and you had you know, the Irish guy Keane, who was amazing.
Yeah,
you know,
bless him.
he'd go around swearing at the players. It was quite amusing to watch him.
Yeah, that was great. So you've talked to us about Gregory, who's probably one of the best players. Well, not probably, is one of the best players ever to grace the KOPA League. What about characters? So yes, we can all talk about the good players and the players with great attributes. What about characters that may not necessarily have been top players, but stood out for you in your time, either as a player or as a referee?
Well, one of the characters was Shagali, who used to play for IL back in the day.
Yeah.
But he was actually a South London boy, so in his latter playing days, he came and played for Cosmos. But he was like people. He'd turn up on the pitch, and people just looked up to him and saw him as this kind of legend playing. He was a quiet bloke, honestly, but on the pitch, he was fierce. You know, no one would go near him. You know, he was about 6 foot tall and very, very physical. But and he played for the representative KOPA team as well. But Shagali was one of the real characters I think anyone who played back in the day would remember. Well,
Chris Monsigos when we last had the pod a couple of weeks ago, he mentioned Nick as well. And in our sort of preview, you know, first pod, I mentioned him as well, because I remember training with Cosmos down at Tabard, and Nick was there, and the guy must have been well into his 40s, and he was fit as a fiddle. I mean, he was incredibly fit. Incredibly. That's right. Fit.
He just had the physique and I don't know, the right genes, but he could play, and you know, he'd put younger players to shame with his fitness and stuff like that.
That's right.
But
that's right.
I mean, there was another player I remember back in the day. He's related to my wife, actually. A guy called Serge. He's a real stalwart supporter of Salamina, Serge Costa. He could have played professional in England or in Cyprus. Fantastic player. I remember the national team came over and played at Market Road, and he scored 2 goals against them in a 2-2 draw. Amazing.
What about characters as a referee? Anyone you want to highlight?
Obviously, Keane. I forgot his first name. The Irish guy was a real character. Socrates obviously was a real disciplinarian. Everyone knew Socrates and wouldn't mess about with him. Obviously, I'm very close with Andrea Sanastasiou now, and he's done very well. It's real, you know, credit to refereeing, and you know, he's obviously done well and gone up through the levels as well, and then does semi-pro refereeing as well, and assistant refereeing as well. So we've had some really good referees in that regard. Dave Bushell was you know, obviously not a Cypriot referee. He was a character. No one messed about. He wasn't very big, but he was very, you know, sort of assertive on the pitch. No one took. In fact, he did lines in the championship and stuff like that. You know, so he was another one that was a real character as a referee.
Yeah. How did you get on with like players and managers as a referee? Are there any characters from that? So you would have refereed lots of Steve Sinotti teams. You know, we've heard about Steve being, you know, one of the great managers in the modern era. and going back to, you know, if you started refereeing in the 80s and 90s, what about people on the sidelines?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, especially in a KOPA league, and the passion and the determination to win, they're all great when they're winning, you know. And it's just when a decision goes against them or they lost, because there's so much pressure from the supporters and everything. It's a bit like, you know, in the Premier League or other teams that we support. If they lose, it's very, very hard. And Steve was a real tough one to referee, you know, and he still is. I mean, I've done Olympia games in the recent past, you know. They're playing in the Premier League of the Barnet Sunday Football League, and it's still very, very difficult to referee because you've got that pressure from the sideline. I remember Andy Felagudi. He was manager with I think with AL and then Abuel. He was always someone that had an opinion and stuff like that. There's quite a few that we had to, you know, deal with. And they were great when you're winning, but unfortunately, because of all the pressure they were under, if they didn't win and you know, they would look at errors on their part, it would be the referee's fault that their team lost, you know. And I think that's what we, as a referee, and you will know this, you just mustn't take it personally. No. It's just the way it is.
Yeah. Still,
George, one of the reasons why we started this podcast is because, number one, I don't know much about the KOPA League, right? But when I was younger, going to football games with Mike and various other people, everyone would talk about the KOPA League, and I'd hear their stories, and, you know, I'd be really, really intrigued about it. And now, as I come to almost 45, I'd like to find out more about it and the stories that you guys have. So when, let's just say, the infancy of the KOPA League and the days when you guys were playing against each other, and then it came to, say, for example, Basca, Easter time, I'm guessing you guys might have gone to church, bumped into each other. What kind of conversations would occur regarding the KOPA League? Because, again, based on my experiences, hearing the likes of Mike and others, we'd get together and I'm standing there listening to what they're saying, and we could be at a wedding, for example, and they start talking about the KOPA League, or they bump into someone that they've played against or in the same team. Was it the same for you guys, and what conversations were you guys having?
The camaraderie, you know, you were kind of enemies on the pitch, but outside there was a massive respect, and it was a community thing. There was this feeling of being brothers, although you were in opposing teams. There wasn't that animosity that you might expect. That even though you were opponents and playing against each other, you saw each other outside, and I still do. I mean, I was refereed Omonia Youth on Sunday down at Enfield playing fields, and there were some real old guys down there from the KOPA League that were still involved with Omonia coaching and stuff like that. It's the camaraderie and the respect and a community spirit is still very, very strong. And I'm sure you guys know, but next Friday, the 14th, there's the KOPA Vets tournament again, and I've been refereeing in that for the past how many years. And you've got, I think, about 4 over 40s teams and 4 over 50s teams. And you'll see people with hugging each other, you know, catching up, remembering the stories. But you also see the competitiveness. They still want to win. Amazing. And that can only come from having the community that we've got.
Well, following on from that question, when you did go to weddings or christenings or whatever events there were there any specific, I wouldn't say arguments, but were there any moments that kind of overshadowed the occasion because of the KOPA League?
I can't remember any, Stelio. I didn't see anything spill over in my time, to be honest. I'm sure there.
You know how the Gibre are. We talk loud.
Yeah, you know, it's like anything. There were a few more leery individuals that might let that happen, but generally, I'd say the vast majority of KOPA players had enormous respect for each other, whatever team they were playing for, and felt this kind of bond of being Cypriot and playing football, us against the world, if you like. And KOPA League, we felt at the time, and it was without question, because we won the London Senior Cup so many times, the strongest league in London, a small Cypriot community creating the strongest Sunday league. And one year I think we won the All England Sunday Challenge Cup, to show how strong the league was.
Excellent. I've got one more before firing you over to Mike. And which game did you enjoy? Like, was there one opponent that you looked forward to when we got the fixture list? Was there one game that you thought, I'm really going to enjoy this one?
Yeah. Well, we played IL back in the day when Andy Finagwili was manager. They were winning every year. They had the best players. They were IL, amazing team. And we had this quite old manager back then, and he just joined us. And he said, look, you're playing IL, you should by rights lose 7 or 8-0 at Market Road on the Astro. So he played us this formation where we basically had 6 across the back and 4 across the middle. And we literally, talk about a low block, you couldn't get it more low. They couldn't find, and for 89 minutes, 0-0. They couldn't get past us. And we were just like, there for the taking. And they scored a goal in the 89th minute, but we lost 1-0. And people were looking at the result and listening on right. They couldn't believe that we only lost 1-0 to IL. And I was part of that. But everyone just defended and just kicked the ball down the other end, or we didn't have anyone breaking free and attacking or anything like that. It was just to see if we could, get a draw or something.
I was going to ask if your coach was K.O.P.A because he was used to playing a 6-4-0 for the Cyprus national team, but it clearly wasn't him because you guys went 4-0 down at half time. So
I've never had a team talk like it. I never had a team talk like it. Basically, where everyone had to do and not to go beyond the halfway line and all that sort of stuff. Never, but and it nearly worked.
That's not parking the bus. That's getting the guy the Blogambi now, man.
No, it was. Yeah. It was literally they couldn't get through. They were not crossing it, and they tried to play football because that was what they tried to do, but they never had any room to find a pass and things like that. It wasn't really football. It was just defense against attack, really.
Actually, sorry, Mike, I've got one more actually, because again, this IL team who was so dominant have been brought up again. How did they get these fantastic players? Because I know IL in Cyprus were one of the founder members of K.O.P.A.
Yeah.
But what was the connection with this IL? Were they just lucky to find these players, or was there?
I think they had a manager people knew. Everyone wanted to play for them. I mean, there was a team before them. I don't remember. There was a team called Animos that obviously was a restaurant in Charlotte Street in the West End. They were able to get players, and we won't obviously talk about how they managed to get the best players. But IL, right through the team, they had some amazing players and coaches and stuff like that, and they obviously word of mouth. Yeah.
Mike, we need to do some research on that restaurant, man. Never heard of that.
Animals, no. I mean, they used to have a magician there every weekend, a Cypriot guy. It was a well-known restaurant. And they had a really good team. No, it didn't last very long because once you stopped putting the money into the team, it kind of folded. But they were a very good team for a while.
Okay, magician at a restaurant. Happy days.
Yeah, good. They had people on tables. It used to be a really trendy place to go. You couldn't get in; you had to book, and it packed to rafters. There was entertainment going on. There were dancing on the tables and. I mean, it was a real good place to go to. It was in Charlotte Street. In the West End. Yeah. You look at Animals in the West End, Charlotte Street, West One. It was, for a time, it was the place to go.
Nice. Thank you, Mike.
Yeah, I'm just going to fire some quick questions for you, George. Just come back with quick replies, really. Favorite ground you played at and refereed at?
Favorite ground I referee at, I think it probably would be Broomfield Park. I just love the atmosphere there. I remember I was going for my Class 1, which was the top sort of kind of amateur level you could get to. and I was being observed that game. And I had a really tough game with Ammonia playing another team. It was muddy, it was kind of, and I had a good game that game, and there was a lot of people there. So Broomfield Park, without question, with lots of spectators, my favourite ground.
See, when I was manager of Ammonia, I had 2 stints at Ammonia, and then during the first stint, I tried to move away from Broomfield Park. I had a lot of players who really wanted to play football, and if you remember, we ended up playing at Leighton on the Astro before G, because we had players who wanted to play football. Broomfield Park in the winter, it was horrible. It was horrible, wasn't it?
Terrible.
Terrible. It was muddy.
It was a park. It was a public park. They didn't look after it.
No, and those changing rooms. Tell Steve
about
those changing rooms.
Those brick changing rooms, and the referees were in the middle bit between the 2 changing rooms. Horrible.
And whether it was summer outside, 30 degrees, or whether it was winter, -3, it was still the same temperature as changing rooms, -10.
I know, yeah.
And that water was coming out as icicles. Do you remember?
No, I remember. Yeah. It was, but it was just the atmosphere there, because it was the only ground that had that kind of a bowl effect where you had spectators on the terraces and so on.
Yeah, and there's some great photos. I'll pass them on to you still. There's a lot of good photos from Broomfield Park. And as George said earlier, hundreds of people used to go there. We're talking hundreds. It was
Is
like
it by the steps? Is it by those concrete steps?
Where the climbing frames are and the sort of
right there. No.
Yeah, so good.
Nice.
George, what about best goal you saw scored as a player or as a
well, the best goal I saw scored was a Gregor goal from the halfway line. One of my memories, I scored 1 goal in all my time playing. I remember it was at Kennington Astro. I think we were playing Ammonia. Second half, I got a calf injury, and we made all our subs. They could go up front. So I went up front. The goalkeeper takes a goal kick, doesn't see me. I intercept it on the 18-yard line and scored. It's the only goal I scored. I was a left back.
Brilliant.
So that's a memory that I'll never forget.
Brilliant. And in terms of the periods of time, because you've been there from the beginning all the way through to the end, what's the best period you think of K.O.P.A? What's the golden age for you of K.O.P.A?
Well, the golden age, it had the 2 divisions, and you had the rivalries, Ammonia playing up well, over here, the touch lines. So
they even had the rivalry here as well. Ammonia,
yeah, of course they did. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, you remember the Norfolkers had a very good team for a while. Achna, so I think the golden age would have been in the 80s, around the 80s, 90s, I would say, with a golden era. I used to go to the K.O.P.A meetings because, when I finished, I was kind of like the secretary of Cosmos, and I'd go and represent Cosmos at the K.O.P.A meetings, which were, once a month, and they were well attended. And, they were up at the Greek Community Centre in Earlham Grove, and they were always complaining about referees and stuff like that. And it was that they were entertaining. If someone recorded those K.O.P.A meetings with all the secretaries there and the committee on the front table, they were quite entertaining.
Well, I was part of the committee as a committee rep for Ammonia. I went, I think, to about 3 meetings that I couldn't handle anymore. It was just silly. I just couldn't handle the chaos, the chaos.
Yeah.
Right, George, going forward to towards the end of K.O.P.A, and obviously we know it's a shame that K.O.P.A ended, and Stella always asks me this question, but I think it's good to ask people like you who've been there from the beginning, saw the golden age, and all the way up to the end. Do you think we'll ever see a resurrection of K.O.P.A? Do you ever see a situation where we might see the K.O.P.A League start up again?
There is a will. And there's some fantastic guy, Gibros, who does a lot with. There's some fantastic guys. Mario, who's a comic. There is a real will to resurrect it. And obviously the Barnet League, you've got Comi, you've got Nissi, you've got Ammonia.
Olympia.
You got Salamino rejoined.
Olympia.
So there's a nucleus of teams there. If it was resurrected, we get a few other teams. You could create you know, maybe the embryo of a new KOPA period.
So us older ones want it. Us older ones want it, but do you think the teams and the players want it?
I think obviously at the end it was kind of, maybe it was a non-Cypriot rule that some teams struggled with. I think a lot of the other teams that were trying to compete, but they were competing against teams that had players that were semi-pro and so on. I won't go into any allegations or anything like that, but that kind of killed it. So I suppose that there is that issue, that, you know, the spirit of football somehow got lost. But there is still a desire with some of the older guys still around who want to get KOPA back up and running if we can in some form. And I've been to meetings, and that's their stated aim, and they'll keep on doing it.
George, just for some listeners who may not understand what you mentioned just there, the non-Cypriot rule, do you want to just explain what that was?
Yeah, there was an unwritten rule that you could have no more than 3 non-Cypriot players, which included Turkey Cypriots. You know, so every team had to have 8 Greek or Turkish Cypriot players. They couldn't have more than 3, and there was always arguments and accusations that teams were fielding more, and there'd always be some argument. Oh no, that boy's mum is Cypriot or something, or they provide documentation that it was a Cypriot. But it was a gentleman's agreement, because obviously the London Football Association would not allow that kind of rule, because obviously it's not inclusive. It's almost racist in a way, because you're not including, you know, any kind of league should be inclusive, unless there's a kind of, I suppose, you know, the Maccabi League, which is a Jewish league. There's a, you know, separate kind of faith thing there. So we couldn't enforce it, but it was a gentleman's agreement amongst all the clubs not to play more than 3 non-Cypriots.
I actually fell foul of that rule as a manager. The committee told me that and Gibral's he's, you know, he's Cypriot, his mum's from Rhodes or whatever. I went, okay, so I picked my team, whatever, and people that knew this lad said, Mike, you know they're pulling your leg. I was, what are you talking about? The committee have told me, they've shown me documentation. He goes, no, he's as English as bacon and eggs. You know, so it just, you know, I was protected by Mish, the committee, so I wouldn't get enveloped in this in this saga. But you as a referee would have been in the middle of that as well, right?
Yeah, well, they kept on asking. I said, look, you know, I would have to put it in my report that there was an allegation that they said but it was up to them to take it to the KOPA committee, that they felt they fielded more than 3 non-Cypriots. And sometimes it would be a guy from mainland Turkey, which was not considered a Cypriot, instead of a Turkish Cypriot player.
But also some of the nonsense that went on, that let's say Team A would accuse Team B of fielding a non-Cypriot. So you send it to the KOPA committee, and the person who's reading it is actually a representative from Team B and doesn't actually put it through, or actually overrules the allegation. I mean,
that was the other thing, right? That was the other thing. The things went to the KOPA committee, and no one ever heard what happened. Yeah. You know, it was a kind of mystery. It wasn't reported widely. You know, there was you never always saw what the outcome was, and you know, you felt a team was banged to rights, and sometimes there wasn't action taken against them or something like that. Even substitutes, if a non-Cypriot, if a Cypriot player went off and they brought another non-Cypriot on, you know, people would argue about that. They suddenly had 4 non-Cypriots on the pitch, and they tell the referee he can't come on because he's non-Cypriot.
Many a cup final and a cup semi-final were played in that vein, right? Although I won't make any sessions on air.
But it was like, you know, you could see teams on the side looking round to see if teams had more than 3 non-Cypriots, so they could make, in case they lost. If they won, they didn't care.
Did that go on in the 70s and 80s as well, or was it
not so much? I think back in those days, before, I think the community was bigger and more together, and there were more Cypriot players around. I think that the longer the league went on, and the kind of younger Cypriot families boys from families didn't get involved in community things as much. I think in the older, the communities were stronger in the earlier days, and obviously we see it now with young Cypriot boys. They play for English teams and things like that. It's difficult to get them back into a community sort of mentality.
Well, George, that's all the questions I really have for today. So really, thank you from me for joining us. Some great stories there, some great names, great memories. I'll pass you over to Stel.
George, as you know, I just came back from Cyprus, and I was talking to a friend that emigrated to Cyprus a few years ago, and he used to play in the K.O.P.A League. And he mentioned to me that there was some betting going on before games. Now, I'm not saying that matches were being fixed.
A Cypriot and betting? Are you having a laugh?
Listen, I'm just saying what I was told, okay? But in terms of the types of bets, what did you see anything? I'm not saying anything dodgy, but in terms of, did you see any strange bets going on? Did you witness anything like that? I
would say, Stelio, almost categorically, I would say it was not rife in London. I think, I would associate, obviously I go to Cyprus a lot. I had 2 months in the summer there, and every corner's got a betting shop in Cyprus. It's everywhere. And I think but in London, I didn't see the betting side. Not really at all. No, I didn't see it. There was never chat in the dressing room about, losing games or doing things that people were wanting you to do. That I never came across that. And as I said, I was fully involved as a player or a referee for a long, long time, and I knew the teams pretty well. And Cypriots being Cypriot, they would always make allegations about players that maybe were being paid or to turn up and so on. Right? There were allegations. I'll say that they were the allegations, but I never heard allegations about betting.
Yeah, fair enough.
Not in London.
Fair enough. Well, again, from what I understand, the end of the K.O.P.A League was quite disappointing for many, and fingers are being pointed. And again, I'm not going to go into that, but was there a point in the competition where you felt it's not what it used to be? You get that element of, that nostalgia's gone. Was there a period? Yeah.
Yeah, the last couple of years, without question, there were a few teams. Again, I don't want to get too personal, but there was teams that would be able to bring players at half time, that played on a Saturday semi-pro high level, and just bring them onto the pitch to play for them. Obviously, I don't know how they managed to get them. Allegations were maybe they were receiving some kind of benefit from it. And I think other teams got really sick of that. And people were openly shouting across the pitch, making allegations, how much has he been paid and all that sort of stuff. And that for me was almost like the final straw that, you're on a Sunday morning, there are, families there, children, wives, daughters there, and you've got these kind of unsavoury allegations going on about teams being dishonest and maybe being too kind of winning at all costs, shall we say it that way, rather than being competitive and having the best team. And I think that was for me the line. And then some teams just got fed up with it. I'm not going to turn up every week playing against these players that, maybe getting money or playing semi-pro and getting beaten 10-0 every week or whatever. Some teams didn't want that.
Well, pardon my naivety, and it might sound like a really stupid question, but how did clubs benefit financially from the K.O.P.A League? I mean, players weren't supposed to be paid, as far as I'm aware. So, and I'm assuming that money played a part in the demise of the competition. Am I right? Am I barking up the wrong tree?
Look, football. I mean, look, just to have a referee and 2 linesmen in the K.O.P.A League, you needed £100 every week to pay the referee and linesman or something like that, to hire a pitch and the training facilities, the kit. you need backers. You need a lot of backers. You need money. And is that, how sustainable is that? You might have a few people that are quite happy and able to support that, but how sustainable is it? That's the problem. Salamina did fantastically. They went into the kind of pyramid of football, didn't they? And they went up a few divisions in the non-league. But someone had, the cost of that for them. In fact, I heard someone talking about it the other day. The higher up they went, the more it was costing. And so they had to find money. And, obviously a Cypriot team with local backers and so on isn't like a kind of a semi-pro team that from a town or a village that's got a lot of spectators that will come every week and so on. So some backers are going to find it very difficult to keep on putting their hands in their pockets to do that. And I think that's what happens. If someone stops supporting a team in the way they have done, that team's in trouble.
Fair. Well, look, I've got one more question. I'm going to deviate completely away from the betting and the financial side of things. You mentioned Animos Restaurant. A couple of weeks ago, Chris mentioned Holloway Sports. Okay. You also mentioned Broomfield Park. Now, these appear to be iconic venues or iconic buildings or pitches when it comes to the K.O.P.A League. What other places do you think will pop up in discussions about the K.O.P.A League? What are the locations?
Well, Wadham Lodge was a place that, there was a lovely, in Walthamstow, a lot of good games going on down there. Trying to think of other places where well known in the K.O.P.A League.
You can talk about restaurants. You can name Ginodigal, whatever's
restaurants. Obviously, the Visagi was quite a popular restaurant back then in Middleton Road. There used to be quite a few good, decent K.O.P.A dances. But in decent places as well. They had an annual K.O.P.A dance where they give awards out and so on, whether it was at a Greek community centre or other venues. No, there was some decent grounds. Market Road was, I suppose, where a lot of games were played. They had 2 pitches there, and often there'd be K.O.P.A games on either pitch. And obviously with Market Road and places like that, you had a 10 o'clock game, a 12 o'clock game, a 2 o'clock game, a 4 o'clock game. You'd often get like 4 or 5 games on the same day at Market Road, and they had 2 pitches there as well.
New River as well. New River. Let's not forget New River.
New River, yeah. New River Sports Sports Stadium back in the day. That was a very popular venue as well. But the pitch was obviously, it's been relayed now. I've been down there since, and it's been relayed, and it feels completely different now. The access to it is completely different to what it used to be, and so on. Yeah, but those are the places: New River, Market Road, Broomfield Park, Wadham Lodge. Those were the venues. Coppermill Lane was another one where quite a few games. That was over in sort of Leighton, I think it is. Yeah.
Did you guys have nights out with the team and everything?
Oh yeah. We do that. Yeah, we would do that. We'd also, every team had a dinner and dance anyway. That was to raise the money, every year. You'd have a dinner and dance, maybe raise a few grand, and that would hopefully support the team in the coming season or whatever. So we'd have
everything, yeah.
Yeah, and we do tours. I did a tour with Cosmos to Cyprus, and we went and played at the Tyrion against Apollona.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
What are you talking about here?
Yeah. That was Gregory played, and of course he was well known over there. He was getting a few boos and that sort of thing, but because obviously he was an Ammonia player and so on. But yeah, so teams used to go out and do tours. We played a team in Zarinya, I remember. Yeah, good times back then. Staying in hotels, but again, needing support to deal with that sort of stuff.
What year did you play the Tyrion? Do you remember?
Oh, it would have been, my brother was still playing at the time. It would have been I'd say late 80s, something like that.
I was going to say 89.
Yeah.
I
Late.
wonder. Let me just do a quick search here, because if it was 89, there may have been a chance you played against Spoljaric. Let me have a look. Let me have a look. Let me have a look.
George,
because,
whilst Stel's looking,
yeah.
when you were at Cosmos, did you play with? You might have played with my cousin Jimmy Americanos.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, Jimmy. Yeah, he had brother Louis, and Jim. Yeah.
Jimmy didn't have a brother, but Jimmy was my cousin. Jimmy was a really good footballer. He's a really good.
Yeah, he was
one of the young players. When Nicky Milo was there.
Yeah. No, I did. Jimmy, I do remember.
Yeah, brilliant. Go on,
89. No, 89 he wasn't there, but Jerzy Engel, the Polish coach, and he was a pretty big name. Krzysztof Adamczuk as well.
Yeah, we got slaughtered that day. I mean, I think we got lost about 8-0 that day, and I came off, and it was in the summer, of course. We ended the summer. I came on, and I must have had. I remember it vividly, about 7 or 8 7-ups, one after the other. I was so dehydrated at the end of the game. I've never felt like that in my life. You know, no, it was such an
amazing, brilliant, absolutely amazing. I'm just trying to. I mean, I'm looking up the history of Apollon. It doesn't mention anything about them playing in Europe, but so I'm just thinking that maybe they were playing European football that season as well.
Yeah.
89.
Late 80s, I'd say. Yeah. Gregory was playing there as well with us that year.
89-90, they played season 89-90. They played the UEFA Cup qualifier against Zaragoza.
All right.
So you played against a team that was in Europe.
They were much fitter. That was their pre-season.
That's not bad.
Yeah, and we were going in the summer. You know, so the K.O.P.A season had finished. This was July, August, or something like that, when the season had finished in May. So you can imagine we weren't training or doing very much in between.
By the way, which Gasabi did you go to when you were a player? I'm not saying about now because I don't want to get into trouble. Which Gasabi was it? Was it Gigi?
Miggy, yeah. Giggy's, yeah, of course, yeah. In Green Lanes.
And I'm guessing that when you guys played in Europe, you either went to Garça or Magarios.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Oh, so say that again. What was the last question, Silvio?
No, I was saying that when you must have played football in New River, either you went to Magari or the Bacalli or Garça.
Oh, okay, yeah. The Bacalli. Which one did we go to? We obviously go to Espinaz and still do. You know, we back in the day, yeah.
Lovely. Well, George, I've got so many questions, but I don't want to use up too much of your time. We've done 53 minutes, man. And I really appreciate you coming on. It's been great talking to you. Hopefully I was thinking about saying to Mike, like, we should get like a group of K.O.P.A League veterans together on the podcast. I mean, I know you got the day on the 14th where you're going to be getting together to play games, but we should do something similar. Maybe we should go down there and just do some filming as well.
Still be down there. I'm probably going to be down there.
You'll see a lot of characters there. I mean, it's going to be 8 teams of over 40 and 50s. You're talking about 50 odd, veterans down there.
Yeah, but
Yeah, but you'll see some people down there. You'll see, what's his name? The guy from the Barigagi going down there taking photos.
Mike.
Okay.
Mike, yeah.
Yeah. Michael, yeah.
Nice. Bomba.
So on that tournament, at the minute, the over 40s, you've got Komi, Kelen, Achna, and one other.
Yeah.
And the over 50s, you've got Komi, Omonia, Kelen, and Salamina. So big names, historic names.
I mean, Kenny had played for Salamina. He turned up last time. Kenny played in Cyprus, but
he's still fit, brilliant.
Yeah,
I mean,
right.
Some really Salamina will probably be favourites in a really good team. They've got a really good team.
Yeah.
See what I mean? I got together with these guys and this one's the favourite. And I'm just sitting there thinking, who are these players? I don't know who they are, but he's already got the K.O.P.A fever. Look at him.
Yeah.
Even for a veterans game.
No, it meant a lot. I mean, we couldn't believe that K.O.P.A was going to fold and they couldn't sustain it and we had meetings about how can we keep it going, how can we maybe go down to universities and tap some of the students down there. How do we reach out to our young Cypriot boys who are not, close to the community anymore? We were trying to think of lots of ways to try and get it going again.
Well, George, I hate going on about this, but I mentioned this on the last pod, that perhaps it might be a good idea to reach out to the teams in Cyprus, because they might be interested in creating their own clubs within London and obviously boost their visibility, but also bring in British Cypriots that will qualify to play for the national team or even their academies.
Yeah.
So that could be an opportunity to connect the diaspora.
Oh, no, I totally agree. When obviously one of the problems, as you see with, I mentioned Arsenal, a lot of those kids get eaten up by the pro academies anyway, the really decent players. They'll get signed up. So they can't play on Sundays and things like that. But that might be a way forward.
Well,
I
they
know
could take some of their youngsters from Cyprus as well, because I know that Cypriot youngsters would love to play abroad.
Yeah, I mean, back in the day, there was an affiliation between the Cypriot Omonia and the London Omonia. There was always this, so teams were kind of linked with their Cypriot counterparts.
That's certainly something I think is a possibility. I mean, you got even what they call Mike Erasmus projects and all that. You can get them over.
Yeah.
But
not now that we're not in the EU.
Yeah, no? That's right. I was involved with the Greek schools as well back in the day. The Greek schools, I mean, I don't know how well they're doing now, but that's another potential about young, but also girls as well. Let's face it, we want girls playing as well. Cypriot girls, why not? I think there's certainly a possibility there about getting some, young Cypriot girl teams.
Well, do you know, there's a British Cypriot girl called Andrea Kusic that left Chelsea, and she's playing for Ari in Cyprus in the women's team. And we've got a couple of players that are playing outside of Cyprus. Like one's playing for AEK Athens, centre forward for the women's national team. So there are players there. Well, they want to play. I mean, okay, the Cypriot Women's League, there's only 6 teams, right? No, is it 5? Pendoma, there's Olympiago, Ari, Omonia, Lakatamia, and Apollon. There's only 5. That's only because Karimiodis packed it in last season for various reasons. But yeah, so the women's league is suffering. So yeah, Faso says there's 2 playing for AEK Athens. Yeah, there you go. So we follow Cypriot football. So we kind of
my Simbethero is a very staunch Buffos fan.
Oh yeah, is he living in Buffalo?
He obviously lives and works over here. But he's got a season ticket over there, so whenever he does go to Cyprus, he follows them. Yeah, he's from Buffalo.
My mate plays for Buffalo.
Oh right,
Romanian international, Vlad Dragomir. Yeah, I hope he's watching.
Okay, yeah.
But they're doing very well
in the Champions League, aren't they? Buffalo. They're doing it proud. Not Champions League, in the UEFA, isn't it? No, conference.
No, the Champions League. No, Buffalo in the Champions League.
Yeah, Champions League. Yeah, because I heard as well. I beat Palace the other day as well, didn't they?
Yeah, that's right. And see, this is the thing, right? Another reason why we started doing This is K.O.P.A is because we're trying to link it with our Cypriot football podcast, This is Mappa, because I think, me personally, that the Cypriot League is very, very underestimated, in my opinion. It's not Khoraf Gajabel. Okay, there are a lot of Bellaris, which I'm not going to go into.
Yeah.
But it's not what people think that it is, like how it was back in the day. There's a lot of big names playing out in Cyprus. David Luiz is at Buffalo. You've got Ochoa, the Mexican goalkeeper, Ael. I mean, you've got Ari, you've got Connor Goldson, that was a Glasgow Rangers. There are big names going to Cyprus, and even the likes of Jason Punchin, who is a good friend. He used to play for Buffalo, and he still lives in Cyprus because he's coaching out there. So I think
look at Andoni, who's at Bournemouth. He was with Avoyel, wasn't he? Under their Bournemouth manager. Cut his teeth in.
Iraola was at AEK.
Yeah,
Bournemouth manager. He was at AEK.
Oh, but he cut his teeth in Cyprus, and look how well he's doing now.
Yeah, absolutely. So there are many names that have played in Cyprus. Okay, the tail end of the Craig Hignett.
Yeah, we punch above our weight because I think we have got, for a small nation, you know, we're very, very passionate about what, you know, things like football. And, you know, I think in terms of how Cyprus and Cypriot teams compete for an island the size we are, it's amazing.
Well, look, Crystal Palace, you know, Ike beat Crystal Palace the other week. Last
Yeah.
season, Ari beat Glasgow Rangers. Omoni were very close to getting a draw against Man United, home and away. And obviously, you've had Apoel qualifying for the quarterfinals of the Champions League, and Orthodoxy getting a famous draw against Inter Milan.
Yeah.
We've got it in us. But again, unfortunately, because Cyprus football can be very, very divisive, there's a lot that goes on that really shouldn't happen. And, you know, when you're hearing about club presidents murdered on the highway, it doesn't.
No, it's getting mad. That's yeah.
It does. But to be fair, there's a few clubs that are improving. You know, Isle have got foreign investors, as do Krasava or Ipsona. So the league is improving. But anyway, I can go on all day. We've got This Is Mappa tomorrow night if people want to tune in, 9:30. So, Mike, do you want to say good night to everyone and say thank you to our guests for joining us? Thank you, George.
Absolutely. So thanks again, George. Was a pleasure having you on. Thanks for the stories and the memories. No doubt I'll see you down at the five-a-side at the weekend.
Yeah, Trent Park. Yeah, Mike. Yeah.
And yes, thanks everyone tuning in. Thank you for
giving me the opportunity to relive these memories. I had to fall back in the memory about myself, but no yeah.
All right, I'll tell you what. What if I said who is anyone that you know who'd want to come on the pod, and maybe throw me some names in a WhatsApp, or maybe we can drag some people on Friday to join us next week and the coming weeks. How about that?
Yeah. I'll have a think about it, Mike. Yeah, we'll do that.
All right, brilliant. And thanks everyone for listening. Thanks for keeping us relevant and for keeping K.O.P.A relevant. Goodbye, everyone.
Absolutely. Well, don't forget to give us a follow on Instagram and X at This Is Mappa. You can follow Mike at _Del Pieri on Instagram. And that's it, boys and girls. Galinichtas has. Cheers, George.
Galinichtas.
Bye.